What is going on, YouTube universe? Welcome to the Hip and Shoulder, where we discuss everything Australian rules football. And later tonight, round 17 gets underway. We kiss the bye rounds goodbye. We get 9 games of football once more. But there's some darkness within the light, because while we're happy to be back with every team playing each and every week, we're back to double fixturing and double booking and overlapping of fixtures. It's a fucking debacle, to say the least. But before we move on to round 17, let's reflect on my tips from round 16 and then have a look at how everybody else in my tipping competition went. I got 5 out of 7. Very well should have been and could have been 6 out of 7 had I backed Brisbane to defeat Sydney at the Gabba. I honestly just thought the run and carry game of Sydney was going to be too hard for Brisbane to bear. But Brisbane absolutely knocked them from pillar to post. We tipped Sydney by 22, and as you can see on screen, the margin difference was 65. They absolutely mollywalloped Sydney in a game where Sydney can only blame themselves, because they overhandballed and put themselves in precarious positions for not only Brisbane's defence to counter launch, but they got destroyed in the stoppage game. It was an unreal performance by Brisbane, and if anything, they should have announced via this win to the rest of the competition that a three-peat is still very much on the cards. We then tipped Hawthorn to defeat GWS. Closer game than what I thought it was going to be, but Hawthorn got the job done. Carlton absolutely washed West Coast off the park in a game where statistical dominance was absolutely incredible by the Blues. Collingwood getting it done against Richmond in a very innocuous game, very boring game for people to watch. A lot of people are now saying Collingwood play a very boring brand. I'm not sure whether I'm on board with that, but they're not as exciting as they used to be, and they can potentially be. So maybe they're starting to go off on a little bit of the wayside there. We backed Adelaide to defeat Port Adelaide, and Port Adelaide, in one of the upsets of the year, absolutely took Adelaide to town, notching up another win. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough for them to get out of the bottom 4. North Melbourne getting the job done against Essendon ever so slightly, and Fremantle absolutely pantsing the Gold Coast. But while I got 5 out of 7, seems like 6 out of 7 was the total, amount that was the highest in my tipping competition for this particular round. And as you can see, memes aside, we have a handful of tipsters that did manage to tip 6 out of 7, being the most correct amount of tips this particular week. So congratulations must go to Master Tipper from PA, Big Kev Shendo, Evelyn May, Ron Schill, Some Cripple, Brisbane Rule, Benjamin 25, Princess Cahill, Rockstar Pool 69, and Moon Predicts for the most correct amount of tips this particular week. As we turn attention, for those of you who want to see total margin tipping, Gussie McStevo is winning off of marginals, and if you want to have a little run through there, just to have a look for yourselves, that's how things are looking. But overall, total tips, it is Welsh Duke Duncan P holding down the top mantle once more. Sir, congratulations to you. But nipping at his heels, we have a handful of tipsters. We have 2 on 101 tips, only 1 tip behind, and then a handful on 100 tips, only 2 behind. So the run home is going to be incredible. Following Welsh Duke, we have Master Tipper from PA and Big Kev Shendo, both on 101. Evelyn May, Ron Schill, Skyvo, Some Cripple, and Team Wiggles all on 100. And the top 10 is rounded out with Christopher W. and Jonesy on 99 tips apiece. I've dropped down to 19. I am on 96 tips. To get into the top 10, I need to make up a gap of 3. I don't know where it's going to come from. A little bit embarrassing. I was in the top 10 for a while and I've dropped out. Maybe this week, with all teams back in action, I can maybe do some left field tips to maybe move up the ladder. But alas, congratulations once more to Welsh Duke for holding that top mantle, my top 10. Congratulations to you all, and just a big thank you for all 34 of you that have gotten on board with me this year. With all that out of the way, all the housekeeping done and dusted, let's turn our attention to the weekend that is going to be, which is round 17. And it kicks off with an absolute belter. Down at GMHBA Stadium later tonight, we have Geelong hosting Brisbane. 2 teams that desperately need this win if they want to hold on to any chance of finishing in the top 4. And going off of the ladder for the year, the team that wins this probably does solidify that top 4 spot ahead of the other. As you can see, Based upon outcome, we have had Geelong win 2 of their last 3 outings, one of which was at the Gabba earlier this year, where Geelong absolutely pantsed Brisbane. But prior to that, we obviously know the grand final, and then Geelong defeating Brisbane prior to that grand final hit out as well. Brisbane running in better form though. Of their last 5 games for the year, they have won 3 of those 5. Geelong only managing to win 2 of 5 and losing their last outing. So needing to desperately find a little bit of form here, Geelong. Coming off of the bye, I think they are primed to absolutely knock Brisbane off here. Little bit of redemption for that. I mean, they got redemption earlier in the year, but I think they solidified this again. I think I'm gonna go Geelong by 23 points. There is margin for error here. I feel Brisbane on their best day, if they can rock up with that defensive pressure they did against Geelong, they're going to be knocking the door down. Brisbane are going into this game unchanged. Geelong bring back both Tom Stewart and Bailey Smith. So they have solidified their team somewhat from their last outing. And I think those 2 additions are absolutely huge for the Cats. I think they get it done by a handful of goals, but do not be surprised if Brisbane rock up to play and cause a little bit of mayhem down at GMHBA. This is what I mean. Double booking Friday night, half an hour between games. I just don't understand how they continue to do this with the fixturing, but alas, the first game on Friday, Sydney hosting the Bulldogs, turning attention to their last 3 outings. Earlier this year, the Sydney Swans absolutely pantsed them by 66 points. Prior to that, the Bulldogs defeated them in a close contest, and then the Bulldogs by a larger margin of 40. Interesting here. Both teams wavering in form, playing some different kind of, game. We've got Bulldogs winning their last 4 of 5. The Swans have won their last 3 of 5. They should have very well done a hell of a lot better against Brisbane. I don't know what the breakdown was. We saw them over handball. We saw them probably get a little bit ahead of themselves, but statistically around the ground, they still had some solid stats, whereas the Bulldogs, I don't know, even though this is at the SCG, I have a feeling the Bulldogs can actually get up and win here, and I'm very tempted to go the Bulldogs. Very tempted. My bets could hinge here on ins and outs, whether or not the Bulldogs come in with a fit and firing team. I think Liberatore back in this lineup adds a lot of grunt to their midfield. Sydney, though, with Errol Goulden back in, running that outside game, it's absolutely huge for Sydney. The 2-pronged attack in the ruck, do they keep with it? Do they just send Brodie Grundy back out solo? Do they do Peter Laddams? I don't know. This is interesting. Oh, it's just, even, the last 2 times there that they've faced each other, it's in Sydney, it's been the Dogs. And even though this year Sydney have defeated the Bulldogs quite comfortably, I think in isolation, when you go back in time, the Bulldogs, that was when they started getting hit with all those injuries. I'm going to go the Dogs. I'm going to go the Dogs for an upset on Friday night against Sydney. I just think the Bulldogs can take the sting out of the game just a little bit. Might change it, but that I've got to go left of field with some of these tips. The other game on Friday night is West Coast hosting Adelaide. Now I'm locking Adelaide in here. Their transitional game is too strong. Their defensive half since getting Mark Keane back has been sensational. They did lose to Port Adelaide, which does open the door for West Coast here, because West Coast have been playing well at Optus, and I wouldn't put it past them to get a scalp here. But I just think you can't deny the last 3 outings. Even though West Coast last time only lost by 11, outside of that, they got absolutely thumped. And I think this could be a game where Adelaide rock up and win by 40 plus points. If they're on. If they're not, maybe the door opens just a little bit for the Eagles, but I'm backing Adelaide. Saturday afternoon, the first game, and again, see, they overlap so much. It's only fucking 20 minutes between games here. But Hawthorn take on Demons. Now, the Demons play a fun game, play a good game, but Hawthorn's just, their run and carry, their handball, their transitional is superior. Vastly superior. This game, however, I feel is a game where Melbourne can open them up, and we saw this year, they actually did open them up to the tune of 39 points, with a lot of outs for Hawthorn. Does this open the door with no Jack Gunston, with no Impey, Nick Watson is available, but that knock, could that play into factor? This is down in Tasmania, though. And I think being down in Tassie, I do back Hawks here, who have won their last 4 or 5 games. Melbourne only managing 2 wins. This is going to be an interesting watch. Melbourne have every possibility of going down to UTAS and absolutely running amok against Hawthorn. But I feel Hawthorn have found their groove. They're starting to win contested ball and stoppage against teams that they should be getting dominated by. And I think they could really open up Melbourne in the clearance game for this particular week. We then head over to Manuka Oval with GWS hosting Fremantle. Now, I don't think GWS are the team here to knock Fremantle off. There are some danger games coming up for Fremantle, but they're looking for 15 in a row, and I don't see... Well, if they did 15 in a row already, they're looking for 16 in a row. No, 15 in a row, yes. I don't think GWS are the team to do it. I think there's more margins to back Port Adelaide in Adelaide against Fremantle, the MCG game with Melbourne hosting Fremantle. I just think, with what we've seen from GWS over recent weeks, Fremantle are going to run amok on them. Hawthorn's transitional game, their run and carry game, was too hard for GWS to handle. Fremantle do that better than any team in the competition this year, and they win this game quite comfortably. I think without Jesse Hogan in that forward line, they don't have... they've got too much of a dependency on Aaron Cadman, who's not of age yet to be able to really command that forward line on his own. Toby Green's been in and out of form. Clayton Oliver and Finn Callaghan have been doing everything they can in the guts, but they still get overran. This is a game I just think they're going to take by the scruff, Fremantle, and they need to win games like this. If they want to continue their hot form, make sure they keep that top spot. You want to finish in top 4 this year, get that secondary chance, especially with wildcard in the mix. If they do lose this game, it's not panic stations at all. This is around the time of the year where a loss or two would do this team a world of good. Don't want to be going into finals with a egotistical mindset, that we can't be beaten, we're the best. But I do think Fremantle do finish this week with that mindset still intact, because they should defeat GWS by at least 5 goals. Later that afternoon, we go to People's First. Gold Coast hosting Collingwood. Of their last 3, Gold Coast have nabbed them 2 out of 3 times. This is interesting because Gold Coast have lost their last 5 games. Collingwood have been thereabouts and have won 3 of their last 5. And Gold Coast, I said a couple of weeks ago when I backed them against Brisbane, they play as a different unit at the Gold Coast. They really come into their own. But I feel Collingwood here can go up and upset them. I think Gold Coast are getting found out. I think even though their launch from defensive 50 is better than Collingwood's, I think Collingwood's midfield group can get on top of Gold Coast, which is wild to say because I sit here every week when I do my round recap videos and I talk about how I feel on paper Gold Coast have the best midfield quartet in Rowell, Anderson, Miller and Petrarca. But you throw a Nick Dacos in the mix, you get a De Goey who's in red hot form, you get a Sidebottom back into this game potentially, you get Pendlebury, still assisting through the midfield as best as he can, and then you throw the youngsters in there that are having impact, and I feel they can get on top of the Gold Coast. I really do. Obviously shut down Ben King. Is there much damage coming from any other players? Essentially, maybe a Ben Long, Bailey Humphries out of form. I don't know, really. And then their defensive efforts, yeah, okay, Sam Collins probably locks down a Membry or a McStay, but I feel Collingwood's smalls forward at the half can get the better of it. I'm going to go Collingwood. I've got something within me that just feels that the Gold Coast are on a slump, and this is where Collingwood get up and rise to the occasion. The final game on Saturday night, stealth round, Richmond taking on Carlton. As you can see, Carlton have won their last 5 in a row. They have won, actually, could be 6 in a row. They are looking to continue their undefeated streak under Josh Fraser. Over the last 3 outings, Richmond have gotten them once, and it was very slim at the start of the year. Tom Lynch is supposed to be coming back for this game. Could have very well won us that game in round 1. Judson Clark is available for selection as well. I don't want to tip Richmond here and throw. But Carlton are just up and about at the moment, and I feel if they're going to lose, it's going to be to a team where they're expected to beat them. I don't think it's going to be a team where they go in as the underdog, because going in as the underdog seems to be serving them incredibly well. Do I lock in Richmond here as an outside tip? The Richmond man within me wants me to see Richmond defeat Carlton and knock them off their pedestal just a little bit. Do they do it? We're not going to have Dion Prestia. We're not going to have Jacob Hopper, so we're very dependent on these young kids. We do have Nankervis back in the ruck, which is going to serve us incredibly well. Lynch back in that forward 50 is going to be huge. I'm going to do it. Richmond to upset Carlton. I'm going to do the most stupid thing ever. Depending on ins and outs, I probably... You know what? No. I'm going to tip Carlton. I'm going to tip Carlton. I need to be smart about this. Depending on ins and outs, I might shift it. Something tells me there's room for upset, but I'm going to lock in Carlton. 2 games on Sunday. Essendon taking on St Kilda. I think it's very easy to just click St Kilda here, even though they have only won one of their last 5. Essendon have only won 1 game for the season. And as you can see, it hasn't been since 2024, the first time around, that they defeated St Kilda. Now, Essendon were in the game against North, and a lot closer than what I thought they would be. This is going to be an interesting watch. I just think St Kilda, their midfield's going to get the better of them. Their forward half might be a little bit too hard for Essendon to stop. Defensively, they should be able to shut down Essendon quite intricately. If St Kilda want to play finals this year, and the only way they're going to do so, I feel, is through that wildcard configuration, need to win this game by at least 6 goals, because you don't just want the win, you need the percentage as well. Final game of the round, Port Adelaide taking on North Melbourne. In Adelaide. Does North Melbourne cause upset here? We know earlier this year they did, and outside of that, though it has been Port Adelaide both times, Port Adelaide just played out of their skin against Adelaide last week, and it's very hard to look past them this week. North Melbourne at their best can beat Port Adelaide, but I just think what Port Adelaide served up against Adelaide in that showdown rematch, just everything on the line, could get off the chain a little bit. So, we're going Geelong, Western Bulldogs, Adelaide, Hawthorn, Fremantle, Collingwood, Carlton, St Kilda, and Port Adelaide. Are there room for upsets and change? Yes, I think North Melbourne can very well rock up and beat Port Adelaide on their given day. This is probably the most winnable game Essendon have for the rest of the year, and I think they can get St Kilda at their best. Richmond, I hope, can knock off Carlton. I'm going left field here with Collingwood against Gold Coast. Can GWS rise to the occasion? There is room, actually, for upset in all of these games. This round has room for every single team I've tipped against to potentially win. And I think that that's crazy to say out loud, but I think that's exactly where we land. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it for today's video. Do hope you guys enjoyed. Do hit that like button down below if you did. It tells YouTube I'm doing something right around here, and I would appreciate the support. Plenty of content inbound. Over the course of the weekend, I have already mapped out my, even though it's round 17 and we've got only a handful of games left, my mid-season All-Australian team has been selected, and I've just got to sit down and get it out to you all. I have done my mid-season best 22 under 22, but if there's any other content you would like to see me make, let me know in the comment section down below. I am open to all interpretation and all recommendations, and hit that subscribe button on the way out. The community we are building here is growing slowly but surely, and I would appreciate it if you got behind what we were doing and helped make this a juggernaut. I really want to knuckle down and solidify myself within the AFL community as an AFL content creator, and I'm thankful for those that have recognized myself in that space, but we're only a small fish in a really, really large ocean, so let's see if we can't continue to push ourselves forward. But that's it from me, guys. I'm out of here. Good luck to your teams this weekend, and as always, I will catch you guys next time.